of how to win more corporate tours. We broke it down into just 3 things to take away today. So that first thing that we're going to talk about here is going to be defining your target guest. We need to know who we're trying to win. That too many times companies are trying to go after too many people. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about having a page specifically for corporate. And then finally, we're going to talk about using email to increase LTV. And if you're not familiar with LTV, we're going to learn about that as we get to that third one here. So let's jump into number 1, this idea of defining your target guest. We're going to go back in time to the early 1900s with a man who's considered one of the grandfathers of advertising, Mr. Claude Hopkins. And one of his big principles was this idea of winning one before you go after thousands. And how we've applied that is looking at this idea of, instead of just trying to get people in the door, how do we get them in the door, but then move them all the way through the process? How do we sell them more than one tour? How do we start to really get the average order value of one guest higher? And there's this old adage of, when you try to talk to everyone, you end up talking to no one. And we're seeing that coming through more clearly today, that everyone who's speaking online, you're competing for attention against more things in the universe than we've ever competed against before to try and stand out. And so when you get it down to one person, when you can focus on that one target guest, all of a sudden we can start to figure out how we need to stand out. What do we need to say that's important to this person we're trying to win, instead of trying to say stuff that's important to everyone else who we don't really care about as much? So focusing on one guest, first piece of advice. And with that, I want you to also look at how many corporate events do you really need? Let's run those numbers and figure out, what does that really need to look like? Because if we just need to win 20 private tours at $2,500 per tour, we're looking at $50,000 coming into the business that way. And that may be 10 tours at $5,000 a tour. It could be 40 tours at whatever that math is between 12. I'm not going to do that, 1250. Whatever it is, just make sure you know those numbers to have some of those metrics and that goal in place of, this is the person that I want to win, and this is how many I need to win of them. So any questions on the first one here, defining your target guest? No, good, let's keep going. We got so much more. Number 2, having a page for corporate groups. What we see on a lot of tour websites is there's a page that just says private experiences. What I want to see is a page that specifically calls out corporate groups. And we want this page specifically for a couple of reasons. One, we can talk to that group a little more easily when we're talking directly to them. But then on top of that, it's also the page that we would want to direct traffic to if we're running any kind of ads, or if you're doing any kind of posts on LinkedIn or the ads on Facebook. We don't always want to put them to the homepage. And the reason, when we think about it, is the big underlying key here is just the conversation. What are we saying to someone? And so if they see an ad that says, hey, come book our corporate tours, they're like, great, yes. But then they click on that ad and they get to a homepage that says nothing about corporate tours. We've broken the conversation. And so just think about it that way. When you take that one target guest and you start putting him through the process of, what is he going to do? What's going to happen to them? How are they going to interact with my service all the way through? Look at that idea of kind of, what is that conversation that guest is having, and changing this corporate groups page. So right now we've kind of got an example of Chicago Pizza Tours page, and then we got a picture up of what it could look like. And so when we look at the two of these kind of side by side, so Chicago Pizza Tours' new site is launching next month. We're working with them on getting it up. And this is the difference in that private tour conversation. Is the one on the left, we can see just says private tours, and then it immediately puts them into what looks like a menu with a bunch of numbers on it. The one on the right welcomes them, says exactly what this is for, that they're getting there in corporate groups, answers a few questions, and then we're actually pushing him more to check availability and have people take that step to talk to him instead of booking the private tour directly. And a big reason for that is we want him to be able to talk to them, figure out what they need. What is some of that value? Why is this private tour so important to this corporation? And so we want to see a little more of those conversations happening. So number 1, define that guest. Number 2, let's have a page for corporate that talks specifically to corporate to tell them what's in it for them. Amy, it looks like you might have a question. No, okay, just waving. Okay, number three, so using email to increase LTV. And so LTV meaning lifetime value, Calandra, sorry, I missed you. We'll get back to you at the end of this. So using email to increase lifetime value. And what I mean by that is, how can we get that one person that we want as a corporate tour to then spend even more money with your company? And it's not that I'm trying to trick them into spending more money. It's that you all do such amazing stuff. You all have such incredible experiences. Some of them I've had the chance to take personally. And I just want to push that. There's no reason someone wouldn't take your experience and then come back and say, oh my God, I can't wait to bring my friends. I can't wait to bring my family. I can't wait to come back next year and do this again with my corporate group. So how can we use email to start promoting that? And so what we can look at is that guest journey. So one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do after this, after you've defined that target guest, is just write down all the steps that person takes in working with you. It's one of the components that a lot of companies don't have in place, and it's known as that customer journey. Just what are the steps they go through? Because once you have them all written out, you can look at those steps and start to see what needs to improve. You can see where people may be falling off. And so I want to pick up this guest journey of saying, the person just took the corporate group with you, they're done, and they attended your tour. Congratulations, fantastic. Then we should send them a thank you email. Here's a thank you email. We appreciate it. If you want to leave reviews, sure, here's a chance. But then through CRMs, through some of these email automation systems, or just by jumping ahead in your calendar and making a note for yourself to do it, 3 weeks later, let's send an email about, hey, you really need to book your holiday party. Time's limited. You should do this now. You just had our experience. And then maybe it's a few weeks after that they're going to get another email. And this one's going to say, hey, next time you got friends and family in town, let's talk about that. But you want to map out this journey. You want to know the steps that we're going to send to them after the tour is done to encourage them and use, again, that conversation, some of those components of what we want to talk about with them. So what we just went through, a bunch of stuff in a short amount of time there. Defining your target guest, pick that one person, and don't be afraid. So many companies are afraid. When we pick one person, we're not saying these people can't work with us. We're just directing our marketing conversations to the people who are more likely to book with us than someone else. So pick that one person who's going to book that corporate tour. Is it the head of HR? Is it a smaller company that you're targeting? It's a startup, so you're going to go after the administrative assistant. Figure out who that person is in the corporation that you need to go after first. Then let's have a page that's going to talk about what they need to know on that page, the benefits specific to them, and why do they want to book a corporate tour with you? And then finally, using email to increase lifetime value.